Teddy covers, and hopefully we'll get through our discussion with Teddy with the hydro bill not arriving at my door saying it's been unpaid like yesterday. No, I'm kidding. That was actually a legit power outage. The whole town, the whole survey, the whole neighborhood, right into west end of Hamilton was out due to the power outage yesterday for 3 hours. But good news is we're back, and so is Teddy Covers on this Tuesday. Teddy, how are you?
Nothing more fun than a power outage, huh? It was no big. It was fine. You know, I mean, it took me a minute to get the chat open, but as long as I got the chat open and I could talk with the low baggers, it was fine. Of course, the dead air while I was trying to get the chat open might not have been great to watch, but it's all good, man. If you have a power outage again today, I'll be happy to close out the show.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, you were a champ. You've done these shows for decades, it seems now. Yeah, you're used to it. Podcasts, videos, audio show, whatever. Teddy's done more shows than you can shake a stick at in his handicapping career. So he's definitely someone I trust to be able to pull the show home for me when I went down and out with the power situation yesterday. All right, Teddy, we've got lots to look at for this Tuesday. We'll start World Series Game 1 because, hey, it's a championship series that deserves the lead spot. In my opinion, it's not going to be a lead spot in my bankroll today, unfortunately, though, the Astros and Nationals, because I've said to people here, breaking down this first game of this series, Scherzer Cole, great matchup. I think it's very, very difficult for me to wrap around betting side or total in this game. You've got Cole, who's looked unbeatable for the Astros. He's been tremendous. Laying a crazy, astronomical price, though, minus 190. On the flip side, you got concerns about the Nationals being off for several days. Does it disrupt the rhythm they had after beating the Dodgers and just sweeping through the Cardinals the way they did? And on the flip side for them, they've got Scherzer, who's, an elite pitcher at plus, 180, whatever the price he's getting here in this first game. A guy that the Nationals with him on the mound are 15-3 in his last 18 starts. So it's a really tricky handicap for me in this game. It's a game I'm excited to watch. It's a great pitching matchup. Fascinating. I'm excited to see it. But from a betting standpoint, at least pregame, I'm not involved. Teddy, what are you interested in with Game 1 tonight?
Yeah, I'm not close to being involved.
Yeah.
And it's all about respect for Cole. Because, frankly, we should be taking Scherzer at this price. And if I had to make a bet, I would take Washington at this price because you can't give Scherzer a plus 180. That's not an appropriate price. But in the postseason, as we know very well, yeah, the starting pitching matchups you pay attention to them. Most of these games will not be decided by starting pitching matchups. It's going to be bullpen versus bullpen. It's going to be lineup versus lineup. It's going to be who can get a clutch hit at a key point in the ballgame. That's how the majority of postseason games are decided. Certainly the majority of World Series games are decided. So you say Cole deserves to be $2 over Scherzer? No, he doesn't. But when you look at the rest of the equation, Astros bullpen versus Nats bullpen, no comparison. No comparison. Houston get outs, Washington not so much. Lineups is where I have my question because we know Houston's as good as it gets. 1 through 9, that lineup's dangerous. Nats aren't that far off. And that's, to me, the biggest issue in the series and the biggest issue for Game 1 is Washington going to be able to hit after the layoff? And if they can hit, they're live in this series. They are. What are the Astros, like 27-3 in Cole's last 30 starts or something ridiculous? I don't want to step in front of that. And my postseason has been, the disaster isn't strong enough. I've been losing everything in the postseason. I haven't done anything right. So my lean tonight is the Nats plus, which says that Houston might be the way to go. I'm a good fade right now, Ian, and a good fade is worth its weight in gold. Top 10, when I finished the top 10 super contest, it was all about, I had one guy who I bounced my picks off every week, and anything that he liked, I would throw off my list. And that helped me, having one good fade really helps. And right now, my baseball is nothing but fade material. I lean Washington plus, but I'm not going to bet it.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a really, really tough one to get involved with. We'll see, again, the layoff. And again, I think the Nationals in particular, you rely really, really heavily on the middle of the order, probably more than the lengthened, deeper Astros lineup. But, what we were seeing out of Rendon and Soto and some of the guys in the middle of that, or Trey Turner had a good series at the plate against the Cardinals, that Washington lineup showed they're capable. Can they match Houston 1 through 9? No. But we know they've got their lineup improved and got better as the postseason's gone on. So we'll see if they can bring their hitting shoes. And that's always a concern, again, as you mentioned, when you got a team that's been off for the several days that the Washington Nationals have. All right, we will now move on to NBA. I know there's 10 NHL games. Teddy does not handicap it. I can guarantee you Teddy's not spending his afternoons breaking down the third and fourth line depth of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I can tell you that right now. So we're going to go right now to the NBA. Teddy, we've got a fascinating opening night of the regular season. First of all, I got to ask you, Teddy, how fired up are you for the NBA regular season? You just a little fired up or big time fired up? And do you jump in a lot early, or do you pace yourself early in the season?
I love betting NBA. I think betting NBA for my style of capping, NBA is beautiful. My style of capping is all about finding teams that are mispriced in the current marketplace and then riding those teams again and again and again. That's my favorite thing to do. Finding a team that's legitimately under or overvalued in the marketplace. And then forget the spots. That team's an undervalued commodity or that team's an overvalued commodity. And in the NFL and college football, the markets catch up fairly quickly. In baseball, you're laying a price with the teams that are rolling. In basketball, especially, you get 10, 15 days into this, our ratings are pretty much set. And they'll adjust slowly, But when you see teams morph from they're playing at this level and, a key role player gets hurt off the bench and the markets don't adjust and nobody adjusts, but their whole rotations are changed. Now the team's not as good and they're going to go 3-7 or 2-8 in their next 10 ATS. I love that. That's how you can make money, where the markets aren't making small adjustments on a game in, game out basis. And NBA is all about that, and not from the get-go. They're going to adjust a lot, October into November. You get to Thanksgiving, and the NBA power ratings will adjust very slowly thereafter. So I do like NBA. I like NBA a lot from the get-go. That being said, opening night, I'm not going. There's 2 games tonight. I'm not playing them. As of now, I have not made a bet on tomorrow's card either. I'm not trying, it is a marathon, not a sprint. We will be going till June betting NBA. So for tonight, for tomorrow, for game 1s, there's a lot of teams that had a lot of transition in the offseason. It's a watching time. It's a learning time. It's a power rating appropriately time as opposed to what we think they're going to be. First couple days, I'm not going to go nuts. By next week, I'll be involved in NBA on a game in, game out basis, day in, day out basis, for sure. And I am pretty pumped because I'm confident that the betting markets aren't going to be in tune with betting realities coming into the campaign, and that continues basically all season long.
All right, so Teddy basically just said it already right there. He's not involved tonight, but we'll still get a thought from him on both of these games. Pelicans and Raptors. These are 2 teams I think could be, in my opinion at least, profitable ATS teams this season, the Pelicans and the Raptors. Pelicans obviously made lots of changes to their roster. Obviously, they're going to, at some point, have Zion Williamson. It won't be tonight, won't be anytime soon, as he's out to start the season. But, you bring in Brandon Ingram, you bring in from the in the Lakers trade with Anthony Davis, J.J. Redick, a veteran three-point shooter. He can't give you a lot elsewhere outside of shooting the three, but he can do that very well still. You get him in there. Nickeil Alexander-Walker's, I think, going to be a guy that can give you some offense from this team down the road. I liked his game at Virginia Tech. Lonzo Ball, we're a great passer. Can he develop? Can he continue to improve? As a member of the Pelicans, does a change of scenery help him? We know shooting the three-pointer was just a disaster for him at times with the Lakers. Derek Favors, nice addition from the Utah Jazz in the offseason. So there's some good pieces now to this Pelicans team. They're going to, I think, be a hard-working team, a solid team. They're going to be competitive most nights. Don't sleep on them type of team. But I feel the same way kind of about the Raptors in that the loss of Kawhi Leonard is going to have them undervalued because people are going to say, Kawhi Leonard's gone. It's not the same Raptors team. They're not going to be anywhere close to as good. And yeah, they're not going to be as good overall, but you got a good coach. You got a great GM, Masai Ujiri, a stable organization, well-run organization overall. You've got, Kyle Lowry can still play. I think OG Anunoby, now that he's healthy, he's going to be that X factor. Can he step up, be a good two-way player like he was prior to that injury? Fred VanVleet's going to get more minutes. Can he make the most of it? And obviously, Pascal Siakam. Now he's the lead dog, the alpha male. Can he handle that role and that pressure? now that he's going to be the go-to guy for this Raptors team. The big money now going his way. Can he handle that? You got still the veterans like Gasol and Ibaka on this team who can still, I know they're slightly on the decline, downward slope a little bit, both of them, no question. But they could still play at an effective level, been good NBA players for years. This team's going to play defense because they were an elite defensive team all year. I know Kawhi's an elite defender. You don't have him anymore, but team defense, I think, will still be very good for this team. So this is bet on versus bet on for me. I didn't play the side. I kind of lean under in this game, though. 231, it was where it was. It's already getting hit to the under right now. I think the Pelicans will be an improved defensive team. I think the Raptors are still going to play very good defense, just like they did last year, winning the NBA title. So the under is the thing I'm most interested in. What's your take on this one?
So one thing that we don't want to do for game one of the season is try to even think about what they're going to be a month or two from now. New Orleans might be pretty good a month or two from now. They're not today. If I was playing this game, I would only play Toronto. And yes, they lost Kawhi Leonard. Yes, they lost Danny Green. The core of that team is back. What we saw from Toronto winning a title, and of course we have a team that won the title at home for their opener, national TV. It's going to be a raucous environment in there. So you have a team that is bringing most of their pieces back against a team that is completely rebuilt from last year. 4 new starters for New Orleans. Okay. Toronto, we know they play defense. New Orleans didn't play any defense last year. You got 4 new starters. I'm not convinced that they're going to play any defense to open up the gate in 2019-20 either. So when you talk about where these two teams are today, Toronto's a lot better than New Orleans, especially with Zion out. And remember, the whole preseason for New Orleans was, let's get Zion ready. Let's get him to be a stud. He's going to be our guy. And now, oops, he's hurt and he's out. Toronto or pass. It's very clear for me. Total-wise, the totals look high on paper right now. All of them. But when you say what's going to be ahead at the very beginning of the season, offense or defense, I'm not convinced it's going to be defense for a lot of teams. So when you have a team like New Orleans that's going to push and going to play pace throughout, that's not a game I'm necessarily looking to bet under the total game one. If I free bet, that's the way I play it. But free bet, if I had to play it at Toronto, I think would be the stronger of the two.
All right, so a stronger lean to the Raptors. They're about laying 6.5, 7 right now in this game. And I think Toronto's going to be, that one of those teams that they're going to be back to their fly under the radar days, like they were years ago. Last year they became, they were on national TV all the time last year, the playoff run, winning the title. This year I looked at their schedule. They're not on national TV anywhere close to as much this year without Kawhi Leonard on the team. Now they can go back to their undervalued days, people sleeping on them a little bit. Again, they still got the GM, the coach, the core of the team, guys that have shown they're capable of playing well at the NBA level. Just can they increased minutes and roles? Can they thrive even more in those? That's going to be the thing to watch with the Raptors. Guys like Van Vliet, Siakam, Powell. Norm Powell's going to get more opportunity this year. So that's definitely the thing that you're going to want to watch for with this team. But long term, they'll be bet on teams. You're right about the Pelicans. I said that earlier too. New rotations. Who's the starting 5? What's the bench going to look like for Gentry's crew? They're scientists at this time of year, the coaches. They're just trying to get their rotation set, trying a bunch of different things. So that's why you got to pace yourself these first few games of the season. Lakers and Clippers. I know for the Lakers and the Clippers fans, the hardcore fans, Teddy, it's going to be the end of the world if you lose this game tonight, first game in a statement game like this, but it's one game out of 82. Yet I know people will overreact and say, hey, it's the end of the world. We lost tonight. How could we lose this game? But calm down. It's game 1. Lakers land 3.5 in this game, total 223. Very tricky game here, too. Again, new faces on both teams. What are Rivers and Vogel, the two coaches, going to do in terms of their rotations? It's another game where the total seems high. The Lakers have taken money, albeit despite the fact that Kyle Kuzma ruled out for this game. Kyle Kuzma, one of the players I really like on this Lakers team. But the question for the Clippers is no Paul George. You got a couple of your bench guys banged up to begin the season. So there's some absences for the Clippers. There's some new faces there on that team as well. Of course, for the Lakers, they also brought in Danny Green in the offseason. So there's just a lot of unknowns right now. It should be fascinating to watch, fun to watch, but again, a tricky game to gauge, the first game of the season with changes on both sides. Teddy, what's your take on the first installment of the Battle of LA, which will have a ton of eyeballs on it all year?
Yeah. So one thing that I really look for all year in the NBA, but especially early this season, I want player quotes. I don't want coach speak. I want player quotes. I got a good one for the first game that I forgot to read, but I want to read it now. This is from Fred Van Vliet. Okay. Talking about playing without Kawhi. Quote, playing with Kawhi was an extreme luxury, but it was very challenging. I've never played with a guy like that before who was just so good and so dominant that you have to get out of the way sometimes. When he didn't play last year, Kawhi, we had a lot of fun. I'll say that. The ball moves. Obviously, you got to want a guy like that when you're trying to win a championship. But I think the ball moving, everyone sharing it, playing faster, it can be a little fun for sure. That's also not a quote that speaks for an under in that ball game for Toronto. The quote from the LA portion, this is from Kawhi, okay? And it's not a long quote like that one. It's real simple. Quote, we still have to find a rhythm with each other playing together. I think we're going to do well. That was my mindset on it. Come out and win ball games. Okay. Kawhi's telling us they're not ready. All right. The markets
Read between the
are
lines type
ready.
of quote. I hear you. I hear you. Yeah.
The money, I mean, I was so shocked to see the money on the Lakers. The Lakers? What's the money coming on the Lakers? Lakers aren't any good. All right. They're really not. I'm looking forward to betting against the Lakers on a fairly consistent basis in October/November. I do not think my powering number and the apparent broader betting marketplace powering number are a little bit different with LA. That team is a work in progress for both LAs. They're a work in progress. Clippers not they're going to be they're one of the favorites to win the title. Where they're going to be power rated a month from now is not where I have them power rated now, and especially not without Paul George in the lineup. So, but it's another one. I'm not playing under here. I do not have a strong take on the latter game. Toronto is the lean for the early game. My initial lean for the late game was the Clips, and no, I don't want the Clips. That Kawhi quote tells us you don't want the Clips. The markets are telling us we don't want the Clips. So that's one I really have no betting opinion on whatsoever. Interesting game. And again, with all of these games, we're watching and learning. We watch NBA every night right now. So the goal is to get some useful information over the course of the next 24 hours. That'll help us make profitable wagers later in the week.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's always good, especially early in the season, unless you really read something or see something or there's a certain injury that stands out that, wow, this team could be well ahead of their opponent here, first game or two of the season when they're going head to head. You do want to pace yourself. Let yourself have that opportunity to see what the team looks like at first before getting involved. That's a pretty good advice, if you ask me. There's no need to just go crazy hammering the board tonight or tomorrow night, for that matter, when the NBA's got a lot more games and teams starting the season. I think there's somewhere upwards of 10 games on the NBA schedule tomorrow night. So yeah, always take it easy and pace yourself early in the season. All right, let's turn our attention now to NFL and college football for the week ahead. Unfortunately, I didn't get to talk much NFL and college football for the week ahead yesterday with you, Teddy, because of extenuating circumstances, which we know all about. But I'm going to throw out some bets that I've made early in the week, at least in college football to start. I'll just run down a few and get your opinion on it. This total is going down in the SMU Houston game a little bit. 66, 65.5 now. I've just saw some under money come in. It's not mine. In fact, I bet it the other way over the total. SMU's gone over the total every game. I had SMU Temple over the total, one of my top plays last weekend. It caught there. SMU's offense cannot and will not be stopped right now. I think it's a great offense. They can run the ball. Shane Buechele at the quarterback positions can throw it. I don't think Houston's got the defense this season to stop it, this SMU offense, the way they're going. And again, with SMU, they've gone over the total every season. Betting markets have been way off on their totals all year. I've been on SMU over what? How many times now? 2 or 3 at least, maybe even more than that. There's no reason to ride it as long as it keeps cashing. Not to ride it, I should say, as long as it keeps cashing. So I do like the over in SMU Houston. We'll start there, Teddy. You got any thoughts on that game? It's the Thursday night national TV game, Mustangs and Cougs.
I'm more interested in the side than the total in this one. I'm not going to talk you out of the over, but I'm not playing an over with Houston's quarterback situation right now. The star, King quit the team. And then they went with, what was the kid's name? Four-letter name. I forget. Anyhow, he's hurt. It's not fine. A Tune.
Tune, yeah.
Tune got hurt. Holgerson's son is like the third or fourth stringer. He's a frosh. He's no good. He's a stiff right now. The Cougars, Houston was 21-point favorite at UConn last week. They got outgained by 150 yards. Against the Huskies, they gained 286. This is not an offense I trust to go over the total. Houston's defense will help. Again, they gave up 438 yards to UConn. They're not. Yeah, this is not a defense that I trust to get stops, but it's certainly not an offense that I trust to score. I think the better thing, to get involved with on Thursday night is to play the good team on national TV, looking to make a statement for everyone that's watching them against a bad team that is not great defensively, is not great offensively right now, and is likely to be outclassed on both sides of the ball. I like the Mustangs minus the points much more than the total in this one, though. I won't talk you out of SMU over. Houston, they're not an over team right now, in my opinion.
All right, so I don't argue with the side either. There's no way I'm betting against SMU right now. They were tremendously effective on offense against Temple. Temple's defense had no answers for them last Saturday in that game. All right, my next bet that I laid 7.5 with Purdue against Illinois. It's up to 8 now. It's just one of those situations where that was a tear down the goalposts, go nuts type of win against Wisconsin. Stunning upset win. Illinois is not the kind of program I expect to withstand prosperity and have that same strong performance the following week against a Purdue team that I think with Plummer at the quarterback spot has still been pretty solid. I know they miss Elijah Sindelar. He's been out. They've had some injuries they've had to battle through, but solid enough effort. I know they lost still at Iowa, but there was point spread cover still for Purdue on the road at Kinnick Stadium in Iowa City last week. And it's just one of those spots where Illinois is not the program I trust to withstand prosperity off the biggest win that program's had in a very, very long time. I laid it with Purdue. You got any thoughts on that matchup?
That's the only way to play it. I mean, I'm not interested in the Illini. Plus, though, it's worth noting for Illinois, over the last 4 games, their defense has forced 11 turnovers. Their offense only turned the ball over 3 times. And we kind of expect the opposite of that from Illinois. They're a team that loses the turnover battle year in, year out. This defense has more athleticism than we've seen in recent seasons. They're not just getting some stops. They're getting some stops, and they're creating some takeaways. But again, what happened last week with a Lovie Smith team, we've seen this before. I do not trust Illinois to bring their A game here. Purdue or pass, very clearly for this better. And you're right about that offense for the Boilermakers. Now they found a backup quarterback who's moving the football. I can only take Purdue here. But it's not likely to make my card. I don't think Purdue, at 2-5 straight up, they're not a team I'm excited about laying more than a touchdown with.
All right, very good. So Purdue lean, but not anywhere close to betting it. I'm more higher on Purdue. I've really bet Purdue a lot. Ever since Braum got there, I've bet Purdue quite a bit. Not so much this year so far, but I think this is the right time personally to jump in. Next bet that I've placed already for Saturday in college football. It's a team that I actually cashed a ticket with last week as an underdog, and they're home underdogs here this week. The Tulsa Golden Hurricane. They're hosting the Memphis Tigers. Tulsa getting 11. I took 11 with Tulsa in this game. They hung tough, wire to wire against Cincinnati. They got off to a really rough first quarter in that game, and I was worried early in that football game saying, oh, geez, what a terrible start. But the defense battled. And this is, I think, the best defense Philip Montgomery's had at Tulsa in years. I think this defense can play. I think they can blow up the line of scrimmage. I like that D-line. They've stopped the run at a decent clip. They made Desmond Ridder a little bit more one-dimensional in that game against Cincinnati, and that offense really never got going after the first quarter when they had that fast start, the Bearcats last week. Memphis, they got me last week. But I'm 1-1 the last 2 weeks betting against Memphis. I had Temple 2 weeks ago, won. And I had Tulane, unfortunately, last week against Memphis, and that was a wrong side loser. It was just a bad game from Tulane. Justin McMillan threw one interception after another. It was a terrible game from him. Tulane defense couldn't stop Brady White in the Memphis offense. It was just one of those games. Tulane was awful, and Memphis was very, very good. I think Memphis now going on the road, and we saw them lose straight up as a road favorite at Temple 2 weeks ago. I think this Tulsa team can play with them, has the defense to at least frustrate them a little bit. Give me Tulsa here, plus the points against Memphis, who have been a little bit spotty at times on the road this year. You got any thoughts on that one, Teddy?
Oh, yeah, I'm with you 100%. The only way I would look at this is Tulsa plus, wire-to-wire job last week. And despite, again, a -3 turnover margin against Cincy, and Cincy's defense is pretty good. It's real good. Nothing you can't compare the Memphis defense with the Cincinnati defense. The issue of I do worry about Tulsa turning it over. That's been a problem for them all year. And they're not going to trade points with Memphis. This game, I think there's some correlation here between the underdog and the under. Tulsa's hanging around in these games. They're going to hang around in low-scoring games. They're not trading touchdowns with the Memphis Tigers. But Memphis coming off, and the last 2 weeks for Memphis, huge games, against Temple and then Tulane. Now traveling, laying doubles on the road with a team that's not elite on the defensive side of the football. To me, makes a ton of sense to look at the defensive-minded home dog, Golden Hurricane or pass for this better. My concern, and I do have a concern, is we've seen some signs from Memphis now. I understand they lost the game to Temple, but what they did last week, what they did in the Navy game, what they did against Louisiana Monroe, where when that offense gets clicking, it's really hard to stop. And that's my concern here. Memphis gone over 4 in a row, 5 of their last 6. And if this game is played at Memphis' pace, if Memphis gets, 5 touchdowns plus, Tulsa's going to have a hard time.
That's exactly that's true. Zach Smith's a capable quarterback, but he's not a guy that you can trust to go lighting it up in a 42-35 type of game with Memphis. So, and rely on that defense, be solid enough, and that's what the game plan is probably going to be for Tulsa in order to keep that game close. And the other one, there's a couple others, but we don't have a ton of time left. The one that I'll throw out there that I did, it's one of the favorite totals of the week for me, and it's been just absolutely hammered up. It's even gone up even more after I bet it, is Texas Tech, Kansas. Over 60.5 is what I got. It's 62 now. It's gone up even more than that. Kansas changed the offensive coordinator after their bye week. You saw the result of it against Texas. I know Texas is a banged-up defense. They've got a lot of injuries there. It's a suspect defense, Texas, a little bit. But they did hold Oklahoma in check in the rivalry game. Then they turn around, and Kansas is lighting them up and almost beating them outright as 3-touchdown underdogs last week. Carter Stanley and that offense played at a faster pace. That offense looked crisp. That offense looked sharp. I know Texas's defense was part of that, but this offense looks better just in one game after the coordinator changed. Playing faster, take advantage of the change. It went over the total. I was on the over in that Texas-Kansas game, and I'm going to ride that Kansas over one more time this week against Texas Tech. And we know Texas Tech under Matt Wells and David Yost, their offensive coordinator, they're playing fast just like they did at Utah State when both of them were there. They've got the offense to shred a still very poor Kansas defense. So I think that total's cheap. And apparently the betting markets agree. You got any thoughts on Red Raiders, Jayhawks?
Yeah, I mean, 2 teams that are trending over right now. Kansas over in 4 of their last 5. Obviously flew over the total by about 5 touchdowns last week. Texas Tech has cashed 3 straight overs. And it's a defense for the Red Raiders that's not going to get stops. They've given up 500 yards each of the last 4 weeks. 55, 35, 33, 34. I do expect Kansas to get in the 30s in this ball game. Much the way they got in the 40s last week against Texas. Although it's worth noting that their 2 offensive explosion games this year both came on the highway at BC and at Texas. The only games where they've gotten more than 400 yards were those 2. But I think that's a little bit of randomness. Certainly, the Jayhawks have all the makings of a shootout team right now. If the offense can move the football, Kansas is going to cash a whole lot of overs because this defense isn't going to get a whole lot of stops. Again, they've given up 51, 45, 50 the last 3 weeks, 600 twice, 550 yards in the third of those contests. The defense isn't forcing turnovers. It's not going to force turnovers. So the over makes a ton of sense there, but you're absolutely right, Ian. It's one of those that you better get to the betting window sooner rather than later. The market's already making a strong statement. They expect points in bunches in Lawrence. On Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. Couple others that I'm on already. North Texas, Charlotte over. Charlotte's been an over machine this year. I've been on Charlotte over a bunch, and I finally lost one. That was their first under of the season last week against Western Kentucky. But that was more Western Kentucky's defense, I think, than anything. And they do have a pretty decent defense this year, the Hilltoppers. I think North Texas defense is terrible. Charlotte's defense is still poor. That was a weak mediocre Western Kentucky offense that put 30 points against them last week. So 65 over North Texas. Charlotte makes sense to me. I laid 20 with Louisiana Tech against UTEP, and also took Texas. Pick them against TCU. I know Texas, I don't like laying big points with them or any points as a favorite. They proved it last week against Kansas. You give me Texas in a pick 'em range. You give me Texas as an underdog. Tom Herman as a dog. We've said that ad nauseum. And you give me them in this kind of price range against a team that I think they're better than, because I'm not a big fan of this TCU team, and I think Texas can get it done. You got thoughts on any of those games?
I have Texas +1 in my pocket, so I'm with you on that one. That was one of the ones we talked on yesterday's show, where I thought that it's a Longhorns team. They're better than TCU, and that was a line that surprised me. Although the betting markets are concerned about Texas defense, good. I'm concerned about TCU's offense. It is not a dynamic unit. Right now, I certainly wouldn't talk you out of that Charlotte over either. And we talked about it last week, where Western Kentucky's the one team in that conference that's playing defense, and lo and behold, they cash an under. But before that, they were 5-1 to the over, and we're talking about a North Texas team that is 5-2 to the over so far this season, putting up points in bunches every week despite turnovers. They've been -2 in turnovers, 5 turnovers the last 3 weeks. The last 2 weeks, I should say. They still scored 27 and 33. Over there makes a ton of sense. Wouldn't talk you out of that one at all. And the third one, I didn't have a strong opinion on.
All right, so that's good stuff. Conference USA, we're seeing some shootouts in that conference. I know Middle Tennessee, North Texas was a high-scoring game last week. My best bet on the SBR Closing Line college football show, Teddy, last Saturday was Southern Miss, Louisiana Tech over 58.5. That was as easy as it gets, pretty much. That game, yeah. That was a shootout. I like those two quarterbacks, Abraham for Southern Miss and Jamar Smith for Louisiana Tech. Those are two good offenses, and boy, they proved it in that game. Golden Eagles and Bulldogs last week going over the total in that one. All right, NFL. Not much, unfortunately. I don't know about you, Teddy, because I know I liked the Rams last week, and I know you liked the Rams last week. I'm itching for this Seattle-Atlanta line to come out so I can hammer the Seahawks. I really am. But I don't think we're going to get as good a line if Matt Schaub. We know we're not going to get as good a line if Matt Schaub plays, because I'm seeing 7.5 right now with Seattle at circa, and I'm assuming that's a line with the assumption that Matt Schaub will be starting at quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons in that game, and that's unfortunate. I think Seattle's a better bet with Matt Ryan and a better number in that game than Matt Schaub and a worse number in that game on Seattle. But nevertheless, it's a Seattle or pass spot for me there. The one bet I've made already this week is Carolina +6 at San Francisco. I like the Niners. They're undefeated. How can you not? It's been a great start to the season, but I don't like the spot. They're coming back from the East Coast. The offense is still banged up. Fullback injuries, O-line injuries, lots of stuff. And that offense is not exactly firing right now for the 49ers. Carolina off a bye. They've played great without Cam Newton. Kyle Allen's been good enough. They have Christian McCaffrey, the all-purpose weapon. He's finding his Greg Olsen down the field. He's finding Samuel down the field. There are all of a sudden some plays being made by this Carolina offense, and slowly but surely their defense is playing a little bit better too. The Panthers in recent weeks, good spot, off a bye. Yeah, Carolina +6 made sense to me. You got any thoughts on that game in particular?
I agree with both of your takes 100%. I would much rather lay 3.5 with Seattle and Atlanta to face Matt Ryan, or 4 than to lay 7.5 against Atlanta with Matt Schaub. Although, frankly, I'll probably take the Seahawks either way. The Falcons are a one-way team. They're bet against 100% at this stage of the game. +7.5, though. That's a frustrating line. I was hoping we'd see something shorter than that. Carolina, San Fran, I agree 1,000% on Carolina plus the points in this game. And the +6s are disappearing, so if you like it, grab it sooner rather than later. Here's the concept, okay? Niners offense hasn't worked the last 2 weeks. Really hasn't. Why not? Well, they're missing both starting tackles and the fullback that's the key to the entire running game. Those are significant losses.
Yes.
It's not And, San Fran just getting higher and higher and higher in the power ratings. Everyone loves the 49ers. That's an injury report that matters, and that is a banged-up offense, and that is not a team I'm comfortable laying points with here. I do worry about Allen at QB against this defense, and it looks like it's going to be Allen. But I certainly know I'm not laying with San Fran this week. No way, no how. It'd be Carolina or pass, 100%.
All right, yeah, that's one thing. I mean, San Francisco's defense is getting better, it seems, and really looking good by the week. There's no question. But they didn't cover the closing line against a moribund, horrendous Washington Redskins team in that mud bowl, that rain bowl, whatever you want to call it, last week in Washington. It was a messy football game, but San Francisco found a way to win ugly. But I'm in agreement that the power rating's gone up too high a bit on them. Carolina worth a look, and in a good spot off a bye. All right, we are completely out of time, unfortunately. That's going to wrap up the show for today. Teddy, always great having you on every morning here on Betting with the Bag. Let us know how people can get in touch with you on Twitter.
Real easy. You just follow me at Teddy_covers on Twitter. Heck, I tweet out this show every day, so you'll get an extra reminder if you follow me at Teddy_covers. Thanks, Lowbaggers. Have a great day. Thanks, Ian. Always enjoy hanging out with you in the morning, and we'll do it again tomorrow.